Howdy doody, my name is Cameron, better known as Venus Theory. This is the official UVI YouTube channel, and you should definitely watch out for that thing that's directly behind you. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the new Soul Drum soundware from UVI. Soul Drums is a collection of hand-picked drums recorded at the Hit Factory's Studio C, which is one of the most famous studios in the world, best known for being used to record many of the timeless hits of the golden era of soul. Every drum in this collection was deeply sampled with a variety of articulations and playing styles, allowing you to build your own custom drum kit from the ground up or work from a number of professionally designed mix presets that are ready to go right out of the box. There's also a sizable collection of loops, grooves, phrases, breaks, and fills to use this library as a songwriting companion or just to add a finishing touch to your productions. What defines Soul Drums as a collection, though, is not only its distinctive sound and character, but its combination of versatility and immediacy, and that's what I wanted to explore here today. So let's dive in and check it out. The UI of Soul Drums is broken up into a couple of different tabs, so let's break down where everything is and how it works first. Here we have the main tab, where we have a level control for each individual drum, as well as a master limiter that we can engage or disengage with a threshold control. Down in the lower left, we can access the preferences page, which gives us controls for the MIDI map with a few different MIDI map presets available, and the velocity response controls. There's also the main output control, which allows you to enable a left and right stereo output mode or a multi-mode of channels 1 through 16 to get separate control over every single drum in the mix in your session. Up at the top of the UI, we can access the presets. These presets will load both a drum groove as well as a kit. However, if you only want to load the kit and not the groove associated with the preset, you can click the kit only toggle to load just the kit and not the groove preset. To the right of that, we have the play button, which allows us to start or stop playback of the loaded sequence. And to the right of that, we have the sequence button, which allows us to access the sequence library. Here we have a variety of different sequences and grooves sorted by style, sorted by sequence, and sorted by the style or variation of that sequence. At the top, we also have controls for things like swing, the velocity curve, and the tempo. If you'd like to export the MIDI of the groove and work on it a little bit yourself, you can also do that by clicking the MIDI export option and dragging and dropping that into your session. Every drum has its own settings inside of Soul Drums here, but many of these controls are shared, so we're just going to go through a few of the critical differences between them, and with that, you'll know everything you need to understand every single drum in this collection. In the bass drum here, over to the left, we have our main controls, with things like volume, a solo and mute option, panning, a velocity response, compressor, pitch, which we can pitch the drum up or down, and an equalizer. Over to the right, we have the instrument selection area. In the case of the bass drum, we have 6 different bass drums with different beater types and playing styles. Then below that, we have controls for the mix of the bass drum. In the mix area for the bass drum, we have 2 separate microphones, which we can engage or disengage with their respective power buttons, as well as separate volume controls for each. Then these are fed into a shared amplitude envelope, which we can use to shape the volume of the kick drum. Then we have separate drive channels. These can be bypassed with the power button, with independent blends for each, as well as a low pass and high pass filter for each microphone. Below the acoustic instrument selection, we have a digital sample selection with over 150 different digital samples we can layer with the kick to create a more modern hybrid approach to the drum sound. Here we have individual controls for the digital layer like solo, volume, pitch, attack, decay, drive, and a dual mode filter with low pass and high pass. It's worth noting as well that the entire Soul Drums library consists of 2 core playing styles. We have sticks and brushes, so all of these carry over to the brushes version of the instrument as well. Down at the bottom, we have the mic bleed matrix and the effect sends for the individual drum layers. The effect sends consist of 2 different delays and 2 separate reverbs. So let's break down the mic bleed matrix, because this is probably one of the most interesting aspects of this sound collection. When you're recording a drum kit, you're often using quite a few microphones, maybe 1 for each drum, maybe a pair of overheads, a couple room mics, or however you might set it up. Obviously, with digital sampling, we can sample a single drum hit and have a perfectly clean, isolated version of each drum. But in the world of real live session track drums, this just doesn't exist. When a drummer is playing a drum part for a track, they're obviously not going through the whole session playing 1 drum at a time to build up the final drum take, because that would be absolutely insane. Instead, they're playing the full kit, and with this comes bleed into the different microphones, because with all the different microphones set up, when you hit one drum, all the microphones are going to pick up a little bit of that same sound, and this is what the mic bleed matrix allows us to control. With the mic bleed matrix, we have separate sends to each microphone. So here in the kick drum, we could send a little bit of the kick signal into the snare microphone. We could also disable maybe the kick bleeding into the overhead and room to get a super tight sound. And we can adjust the mix of all of these things. So let's bring in a few microphones here, change the mix a little bit, and you'll hear that we get quite a bit of timbral variety. Just by adjusting the mic bleed matrix and the different levels of signal being bled into different microphones. These core controls are shared for the snare and hi-hats. However, for the toms, cymbals, and percussion, the digital sample is not available to layer. Instead, we have different instruments that we can control in each of these. So in the case of the toms, we have the floor, mid, and high toms with individual controls for these. We have cymbals, crash 1, crash 2, and ride, and percussion with claps, tambourine, and sticks. Each of these, though, does feature the same mic bleed matrix, so you can imagine there's a lot of sonic variety that can come from just one simple setting change. It's also worth noting that down here in the mic bleed matrix, if we change through things, you'll notice that certain bleed sends are disabled where it makes sense. Like in the case of the bass drum, you're not going to feed the bass drum into the bass drum microphones. Over in the ambience tab, we have controls for the global microphones of the whole drum kit. So we have our overheads, the kit microphones, the mono microphone, and the room microphone. These can be enabled or disabled. In the case of the kit microphone, we have mid and side recording, so we can disable the mid channel or the side channel, and we have individual level controls for each of these. To the right of that, we can control the volume of that microphone, the drive of that microphone. We have a 3-band EQ, high pass and low pass filters, and a compressor. On the ambience tab as well, we get controls for the overhead, kit, mono, and room sends into our effects down here at the bottom. For controlling the effects, we can go over to the effects tab. Here we have 2 global effects with a bus compressor and EQ. We have a tape delay and dual delay, so these are delay sends 1 and 2 respectively, as well as the impulse response reverb and spark verb for reverb sends 1 and 2, with all of these having individual controls. That's a whole lot of information and a whole lot of controls to take a look at, and I think with that in mind, it becomes quickly apparent how Soul Drums is one of the most configurable and versatile drum libraries available, and we haven't even taken a look at the presets yet. So with that, let's check out a few of the sounds of Soul Drums in action. And that's a look around Soul Drums from UVI. Soul Drums is a massive collection of some of the most iconic drum sounds in all of recorded music history, and it's available now. It runs inside of the free UVI workstation, and you can run it inside of Falcon if you really want to get adventurous. Of course, if you want to check it out for yourself or find more information, you can do that with the link down in the description. A big thank you to UVI for having me back here on the channel again, and of course, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something, and as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.